Recap. Tales of Herding Gods, Chapter 465. Chapter. Under the vigilant gaze of translator Ninetales and the careful refinement of editor Dark Gem, the vast stone formation shifted like a living organism. Countless cubes interlocked, separated, and reassembled in ceaseless transformation, ultimately forming a colossal floating array that surged wildly into the battlefield like a tide of stone. Chinmu stood atop a massive slab that rose and fell like a breathing giant. His eyes tracked the endless motion of cubes of every size, watching as they gathered into towering walls one moment, only to scatter like drifting smoke the next. He-Yi's mastery over formations had reached a realm beyond ordinary comprehension. Under her command, Bamboo City descended into battle, its shifting geometry carving open a path through chaos, allowing the divine arts practitioners of the He family to advance like a surging river behind it. Rumble. A mountain giant charged forth, wielding a weapon that defied reason. It was a colossal club shaped like a mountain itself, from which hung brass bells of every size. Yet even the smallest among them loomed with terrifying enormity. The giant brought the club crashing down upon Bamboo City's formation. In that instant, the bells erupted into a cacophony, their ringing unleashing a devastating wave of sound that tore through the air and struck the formation, shattering countless stones into fragments. Without hesitation, He-Yi altered the formation. Boundless rocks surged forth and clung to the club, layering upon it until the fearsome weapon was entirely entombed. The deafening toll of the bells was smothered into silence. The mountain giant strained, expending tremendous effort to lift the club once more. Yet before it could complete the motion, massive stones began rolling down the length of the weapon, cascading onto its arm. He-Yi activated the formation once again, unleashing its full might. With a thunderous burst, the giant's arm shattered. The mountain giant showed no sign of pain. As though nothing had occurred, it extended its other arm and reached forward in a grasping motion. Entering the heart of the stone formation, it attempted to seize He-Yi, but its second arm was swiftly buried beneath layers of stone. Its palm grew denser, heavier, and increasingly immobile. He family's formation arts are truly unparalleled, Chinmu exclaimed. In the next breath, he leaped from Bamboo City's formation, landing upon the giant's arm. His figure flickered as he bounded upward like a soaring spirit, racing toward its head. At the summit of the mountain, another battlefield raged. Divine arts practitioners of True Heaven Palace clashed fiercely with those of the Gong family. Though their struggle was intense, neither side could claim dominance. Locked in a deadly stalemate, Chinmu arrived in a flash. With a wave of his hand, a sphere of silver light erupted into being, his sword pellet, 2 feet in radius. It rose skyward, spinning at blinding speed as countless swords burst forth from within, transforming into streams of radiant sword light that swept through the battlefield. All 17 sword forms were unleashed, each branching into myriad transformations. 8,000 swords and 17 variations flooded the mountaintop, engulfing every opponent like a storm of blades. Chinmu descended from the mountain. Behind him, the 8,000 swords followed like a gale sweeping through clouds, clinging close before clashing together and returning into the sword pellet above his head. On the mountaintop, the divine arts practitioners of True Heaven Palace fell one after another, their lives extinguished. Only the female practitioners of the Gong family remained standing. Midway down the mountain, a grass dragon surged upward and caught Chinmu. Chief Shi Yuting of the Shi family stood atop its head, while beside her, verdant vines surged forward like flood dragons unleashed. They grew wildly, blooming and bearing fruit in an instant. The endless vines carried the female practitioners of the Shi family up the towering bodies of the mountain giants, their roots embedding deep within cracks of stone. Executing their divine arts, they caused grasses, trees, and vines to sprout across the giants' bodies, tearing them apart piece by piece. Suddenly, a terrifying pulse erupted from the vermilion bird bead. A colossal vermilion bird spread its blazing wings, unleashing a sea of fire that surged toward Shi Yuting amidst the mountains. Standing atop the grass dragon's head, she formed seals with her hands. Green light enveloped her, condensing into a massive sphere of grass to meet the oncoming inferno. In the next instant, flames engulfed it. By the time the sea of fire swept past, only the faint, outline of the grass sphere remained. It split apart, revealing Shi Yuting, who ascended ever higher into the sky, supported by the towering vines beneath her feet. Qinmu leaped from the vines, cutting diagonally through the air like a falling star. Reaching upward, he grasped the void above him and drew forth Carefree Sword from the sword pellet. The blade expanded in size as thousands of swords flowed into it, merging into a singular, terrifying weapon. His descent accelerated, his aura swelling with every passing moment. Then, boom, his body struck a mountain peak with explosive force, causing the massive mountain giant beneath him to stagger. The impact alone generated a ring of pressure that blasted away most of the female disciples of True Heaven Palace. Only a handful at the Seven Stars realm and Celestial Being realm managed to remain standing. Yet the thunder of impact did not fade. The air itself vibrated and hummed, trembling under the might of Carefree Sword as it cleaved downward through the giant. Boom. Cracks erupted across the giant's head. A massive fissure split through its center. Though the head was not entirely severed, the power of Qinmu's strike was beyond doubt. When Carefree Sword descended once more, countless flying swords burst forth, swirling like a tempest as they swept across the mountaintop. In a single instant, 8,000 blades sliced through the air from one end to the other. Severed limbs fell like rain. Before they could reach the ground, Qinmu had already surged forward. Sword light flashed as he engaged two powerful practitioners of True Heaven Palace at the Celestial Being realm. Caught off guard, the two women had already suffered numerous wounds. As Qinmu closed in, the three figures intertwined in motion, their forms flickering like butterflies in a deadly dance. Though injured and less adept in close combat, the two women possessed cultivation far denser than Qinmu's. Slowly, they regained their footing. Their primordial spirits emerged, rising into the air as they prepared to strike. At that very moment, grass dragons surged upward from below, coiling around their legs and binding them in place. As Chief Shi Yuting landed atop the giant's head, Qinmu leaped upward. A red mark appeared at the center of each opponent's brow. Carefree Sword had pierced their corporeal forms, destroying their brains in an instant. Shi Yuting had only arrived a breath behind him. Yet Qinmu had already eradicated all the practitioners of True Heaven Palace on the mountaintop. Only the two Celestial Being realm experts had remained, and now they too had fallen. She had intended to bind their bodies first, knowing that if their primordial spirits were unleashed, Qinmu would be no match. Yet she had not anticipated his speed. By the time she arrived, the battle had already ended. Looking up, she saw Qinmu racing through the sky. Countless flying swords streaked forward, forming a path beneath his feet as they carried him onward. "Heavenly Devil Cult Master, truly extraordinary," Shi Yuting exclaimed. Qinmu surged toward another mountain giant when a terrifying aura emanated from True Heaven Palace. Its experts soared into the battlefield. The number of experts within True Heaven Palace is vast. These must be the elders making their move. Their targets are likely the leaders of each great family. As the thought formed, he saw Mu Yingshui standing upon a white cloud facing the advancing experts. Behind her, Fu Yunxi manipulated the clouds with her divine arts. Qinmu withdrew his sword and unleashed heaven-pilfering divine legs, dashing forward at astonishing speed. Within a few breaths, he caught up and landed beside Mu Yingshui upon the cloud. "You poison, I support!" They exchanged smiles. Before them stood the elders of True Heaven Palace, powerful beings of the life and death realm. Their primordial spirits manifested as the four great spirit forms, charging forward. With a flick of their fingers, Mu Yingshui unleashed poison, while Qinmu amplified its potency. The rolling sea of clouds surged forward, carrying the toxic miasma toward the elders. It was Fu Yunxi's attack. The clouds churned and engulfed them. Though the elders fought fiercely to break free, their expressions soon twisted in horror. Flesh melted. Primordial spirits disintegrated. In moments, they collapsed into dry bones that fell from the sky. With the third and fourth ranked masters of the poison path working in tandem, even gods would struggle, let alone mere elders. Qinmu and Mu Yingshui separated, rushing toward new targets. Rumble. A mountain giant collapsed, its immense body crashing to the ground with earth-shaking force. Cheers erupted from the He family's practitioners. Another thunderous crash followed. Another giant fell. The great families fought as one, their eyes reddened with bloodlust. After toppling the giants, the Fang family dismembered them, transforming their remains into hundreds of smaller hill giants to continue the battle. Combined with the He family's formations, Fu family's control of weather, Shi family's vegetation arts, Gong family's flowing rivers, Mu family's poisons, and Luo family's swordsmanship, the rebellion's strength grew without end. Gradually, silence descended. Only a few thousand hill giants remained. Exhausted practitioners stood amidst shattered stone, gasping for breath. The mountain giants of True Heaven Palace had finally been eradicated. Tens of thousands of female practitioners lifted their heads, gazing toward True Heaven Palace, towering above. They had taken the first step. They had challenged the sacred ground. They stood on the brink of entering the domain that embodied the divine authority of West Earth. Though countless sisters had fallen, the achievement was worth every sacrifice. True Heaven Palace remained silent. Then, clang, clang, clang. The sound of metal echoed. A divine aura began to spread, growing stronger with every moment. From the palace at its center, the aura surged outward, pressing down upon all practitioners. Breathing itself became difficult. The metallic clanking intensified. At last, a golden statue stepped forth from the palace gates, its eyes closed. Towering over 30 yards tall, its body gleamed, runes flickering across its surface. Its eyes opened. Divine light burst forth, sweeping across the sky and down upon the battlefield. It was as though a living god had awakened. Another statue followed. Then a third, a fourth, a fifth. 7 god statues emerged, standing before the palace gates. Their divine radiance illuminated the entire world. These statues had been awakened through ancient techniques, tempered by countless years, until they possessed power akin to true gods. More rattling echoed from within the palace. Tens of thousands of practitioners from the Yu family poured forth. Then, beneath the palace gates, the master of True Heaven Palace appeared. She gazed down upon the rebels with cold disdain etched upon her face. A chill ran through every heart. Over 10,000 had fallen merely to destroy the outer defenses, the mountain giants. Yet the true strength of the palace remained untouched, and it was far more terrifying. The 7 god statues alone could annihilate the allied families. Combined with the tens of thousands of Yu family experts, utter defeat awaited. Qinmu looked around. Even He Yi, Fang Keidi, and Luo Yinyu bore expressions of despair. He approached Fu Yunxi. "Sister Yunxi, you control weather. Can you command lightning?" She nodded, sorrow clouding her expression. "The Fu family excels in meteorological arts. Lightning is within our grasp. But after this battle, such techniques may vanish from West Earth." Qinmu smiled. "How much lightning can you control?" Fu Yunxi hesitated, studying him. Qinmu produced the true dragon's nest and spoke solemnly. "Fatty dragon, come here." The dragon Qilin hurried over. Qinmu mounted its back and placed the 5 thunder pot upon its head. A chill ran through the beast's body. It forced a laugh. "Cult master, human emperor, old master Qin. Why this? This humble beast is weak. How can I endure 10,000 lightning strikes? With the Fu family, you will not be harmed. Fly forward." Qinmu reassured him. Trembling, the dragon Qilin stepped onto fire clouds and ascended. "Sister Yunxi, have all Fu family disciples follow me." True Heaven Palace Master smiled upon seeing Qinmu approach atop the dragon Qilin. He returned the smile. Then, he hurled the sword pellet skyward. It split apart. 8,000 swords descended as one, piercing into the 5 thunder cauldrons simultaneously. Translator, Ninetales. Editor, Dark Gem. The instant 8,000 flying swords drove themselves into the 5 thunder pot. Heaven and earth fell into a deathly stillness, as though all sound had been devoured. Not a whisper remained. Even the countless flying swords moved in utter silence, like specters in a frozen void. Then, above the 5 thunder pot, space suddenly shattered, and a single strand of lightning tore forth. That pitch-black lightning shot upward, violently exploding as it surged into the firmament. Standing before the palace gates, True Heaven Palace Master beheld that bolt of black lightning. It resembled a flood dragon revealing its fangs and claws, writhing as it split apart, transforming into dazzling streaks of lightning that coiled and surged upward like a swarm of awakened dragons. In a mere instant, more than 10,000 bolts surged skyward. Yet, in the blink of an eye, They divided again, multiplying into 100 million flood dragons. A blinding cloud of light gathered before True Heaven Palace, while the 5 Thunderpot ascended into the heavens, releasing endless lightning that continued to surge upward, feeding into the thundercloud. At the same time, behind that thundercloud, Fu Yunxi led tens of thousands of women from the Fu family, executing their divine arts in unison, urging the thundercloud forward as it pressed toward True Heaven Palace. The palace master's expression shifted drastically, her face paling as she reached out toward the black tortoise bead held by an elder of the Yu family. Yet, before her fingers could close around it, the terrifying thundercloud had already arrived before True Heaven Palace. Wherever it passed, the visions conjured by the white tiger bead, vermilion bird bead, and black tortoise bead shattered and collapsed. The vast sea evaporated into nothingness. The blazing flames were snuffed out, and the towering golden mountain crumbled into ruin. Boom! The first bolt of lightning descended, striking directly toward True Heaven Palace. It slammed into a god statue with a deafening explosion. That first strike was like a spark cast into a cauldron of boiling oil, instantly igniting everything within. It was like the first raindrop from a torrential storm, and in the next instant, countless billions of lightning bolts poured down, streaking across the heavens and drowning True Heaven Palace in a sea of thunder. Black Tortoise Divine Shield! True Heaven Palace Master cried out. Fighting with all her strength to activate the black tortoise bead, a massive black tortoise shield unfolded, spreading outward to shield the front of the palace. Boom! Countless bolts of lightning crashed against the tortoise shield, exploding upon impact. The surface of the divine shield shrank continuously under the overwhelming force. True Heaven Palace Master coughed up blood, her body trembling as she struggled to protect her people. Soon, the Black Tortoise Divine Shield could no longer protect all of True Heaven Palace's disciples. The raging sea of thunder surged inward, and countless women vanished into smoke. Even the 8 god statues, whose auras rivaled that of true gods, could not withstand the storm. As they charged forward to resist, their limbs began to melt, their forms dissolving into molten streams of gold and copper. From afar, Xiangxir gazed at True Heaven Palace, now transformed into a boundless sea of lightning. Countless bolts erupted endlessly, bathing everything in blinding radiance. Previously, her green dragon bead had been suppressed by the other 3 great spirit treasures, but now that the thundercloud had shattered their power, the pressure upon her lessened greatly. At last, she could breathe. Qier, the green dragon governs lightning. Xiangxi's voice sounded softly as she appeared behind her daughter. Let us use the green dragon bead to send our enemies on their final journey. Mother, Xiangxir exclaimed, her face filled with both shock and joy. Xiangxiu smiled faintly, gently placing her hands over her daughter's small ones. Together, they grasped the green dragon bead and spoke in low voices. The deaths of the Xiang family must be repaid with the deaths of our enemies. Boundless green radiance erupted from the green dragon bead, transforming into a colossal green dragon that surged into the thundercloud. Instantly, the power of the lightning surged to an even more terrifying height. Witnessing this, despair filled True Heaven Palace Master's heart. The Yu family is finished. The Black Tortoise Divine Shield shattered into fragments, and the endless thunderstorm swallowed her and all the Yu family disciples behind her. At that very moment, a streak of swordlight pierced through the boundless thunderstorm. Ba Go broke through the raging lightning, his blade aimed directly at Xiangxiu. His swordlight was flawless, sweeping aside everything in its path. Even the thunderstorm itself was split apart. His mastery of sword path had reached perfection. Even the storm of divine lightning could not harm him. The swordlight was incomparably swift, as though it had descended from beyond the heavens. Lightning shattered into fine powder before it, and even the brightest flashes could not conceal the brilliance of that blade. Yet just before it could reach Xiangxiu and her daughter, another sword light appeared abruptly, colliding with it with a sharp clink. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor? Ba Go smiled faintly. I have long known you lurked within West Earth. You are crude by nature, always hiding in the shadows. Yet you could never find an opportunity to strike me, could you? In the end, it was still I who forced you into the open. eternal peace. Imperial Preceptor walked forward, stepping upon the air as though it were solid ground. His expression was calm, clad in green robes. A sword rested in his right hand, while his left hand was held behind his back, forming intricate sword secrets. Bago wore white, mirroring him. His own left hand also hidden behind his back, clutching sword secrets. The two figures moved through the thunderstorm, rising and falling amidst the chaos. Though thunder roared with world-shaking force, it could not conceal the crisp, continuous clashing of swords. Each strike rang out like jade beads falling upon a plate, clear and resonant. Beneath the five thunder pot, Chinmu was being drawn upward by the overwhelming force of lightning. The terrifying pull dragged both him and the dragon Qilin toward the storm. Even the plump dragon Qilin felt weightless, as though reduced to paper, helplessly flailing with nothing to grasp. Chinmu also felt his body grow impossibly light, his hair whipping wildly as countless strands of lightning coursed through it, crackling endlessly. He could even feel every hair on his body filled with fine threads of lightning, as the terrifying power assaulted him from all directions. It was as though countless needles from White Immortal were piercing him simultaneously. There was not a single place that did not ache. With all his strength, Chinmu executed the Nine Heavens Eyes Awakening skill, and lightning flooded into his eyes as well. Through the blinding storm, he could barely make out the dragon Qilin. The beast's mane stood on end, its scales raised, lightning rolling across its body in chaotic arcs. Chinmu took out the true dragon's nest. Its immense weight pressed him downward, forcing a grunt from his throat. Yet at last, he managed to resist the pull of the lightning, and his body began to descend. On the way down, he collided with the dragon Qilin, dragging it with him. Clutching the dragon's nest with both hands, he used its weight to escape the lightning's pull. Once he had distanced himself, he raised his head to gaze at the sky. The five thunder pot floated higher and higher, his 8,000 swords suspended motionless around it, as though frozen in time. Lightning coursed through them like conduits, deliberately drawn toward them. The flying swords glowed red-hot under the terrifying energy, and Chinmu could not help but worry whether they could withstand the divine lightning of the five thunder pot. Just as he broke free from the lightning's grasp, a surge of green radiance illuminated the sky. He looked up to see the green dragon bead detonating the thundercloud. "The Yu family is finished," he murmured. Yet the thunder was so deafening that even he himself could not hear his own words. Then he saw Ba Go rushing forward, only to be intercepted by Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, one clad in green, one in white. The two clashed amidst the thundercloud. "Old schemer!" Chinmu spat, watching the battle between the two supreme experts. He noticed that neither of them used sword skill divine arts. Instead, each held a sword in the right hand while forming sword secrets with the left hand behind their backs. Their movements were too swift to follow. The sword secrets behind their backs shifted continuously, as though calculating something beyond comprehension. Chinmu was astonished. The transformations of their sword secrets were far too rapid for him to discern. He could only struggle to memorize the fleeting changes, faintly sensing that these secrets held immense importance. As for the clash between Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor and Ba Go, it had already reached a realm of extreme simplicity. Their sword techniques contained no variation, only the most basic forms. Yet every strike caused space itself to tremble. Within that trembling, their divine arts were faintly concealed. The depth of the sword path hidden within was something Chinmu could not grasp, as expected of that monstrous genius who appears once every 500 years. His mastery of the sword path has risen to such heights. Chinmu forced himself to remember a few sword secrets when the 8 god statues, enduring countless bolts of divine lightning, charged into the thunderstorm. Their godly auras surged violently as they combined their strength, striking once to disperse the thundercloud. Instantly, countless bolts of lightning scattered and crashed down in all directions. The 8 god statues were battered and tattered, not a single one intact, yet their battle power remained overwhelming as they attempted to reach Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor. The man seemed completely unaware, continuing his duel with Ba Go. Meanwhile, Xiong Xiu led Xiong Xier forward. Together, they raised the green dragon bead, from which endless green light surged forth, lignifying the bodies of the 8 god statues and freezing them midair. Suddenly, one of the petrified statues twisted its neck. A strange smile appeared upon its face. It extended its hand, and the green dragon bead flew from Xiongqi's grasp against her will, rushing into the statue's palm. "Little girl, thank you." Xiongqi was stunned, losing all control of the green dragon bead. Xiongqiu felt a chill shoot through her body. "Be careful! That is the god of true heaven Pa." Before she could finish speaking, multicolored radiance burst forth from eternal peace, Imperial Preceptor's head. A divine bridge pierced through the void, stretching toward unfathomable realms. Boundless divine light surged forth, as though pouring from the ends of time and space, illuminating the 9 heavens. At the far end of the bridge, faint celestial palaces could be glimpsed, hazy and indistinct. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's primordial spirit surged forth from that misty celestial palace, stepping onto the divine bridge. His sword followed, disregarding space itself. The blade traversed time, and in the instant the god statue seized the green dragon bead, the primordial spirit pierced through its brow. The sword burst out from the back of its head. Blood trickled down the god statue's forehead, while blood and brain matter spilled from the back of its skull. This was no mere statue. It was a living being. For the first time, a smile appeared upon Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's previously expressionless face. His primordial spirit soared back into the heavens. One hand behind his back, one hand gripping his sword, he circled Bago. "You were never my target." "Chi, chi, chi!" Attacking from 2 sides with his primordial spirit, sword lights flashed, severing Bago's limbs. Then he raised his sword to cleave off Bago's head. "Divine Bridge!" Qinmu cried out in shock, his heart finally settling. There was no doubt. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was the saint who appeared once every 500 years. Only half a year had passed since Qinmu and the others established the spatial algebra model of the Divine Bridge, yet he had already completed its cultivation. Old schemer, you have already mended your divine bridge and stepped into the celestial palace, becoming a god. Yet you still hide in the shadows and scheme against others. Qinmu cursed inwardly as countless shouts of women echoed behind him. Under the leadership of their clan heads, the divine arts practitioners of the great families launched their assault upon True Heaven Palace. Mu Yingxie passed by Qinmu, speaking softly. "Little man, as long as Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor lives, never rebel. You cannot outwit him." He Yi also passed by, whispering, "If you rebel, you will die swiftly. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor is far too cunning." Qinmu did not know whether to laugh or cry. "I have never even thought of rebelling. However, this Imperial Preceptor is indeed far too cunning."